Good evening, one and all. Thank you so much for joining me. It's absolutely good evening, one and all. Thank you for joining me. It's absolutely magnificent to have you here. Thanks so much for joining in tonight. We've got around about 100 people who are going to take or at least attend the webinar this evening, and hopefully it's going to be a fast-paced session that's going to be really relevant for you. There's a bit of a range of people in the room this evening. On top of myself, in addition to myself, we've got people already signed up users for the site for this coming year. We've got people who have never used the service before. We've got many of you in the room who have used the services for free previously and perhaps considering whether it's the right thing for you to do to look at the sort of premium service that I'm offering this year. So look, I've got the agenda that's there right in front of you. And this is what we're going to go through tonight. So each of these items is probably a 5-minute thing. Maybe some of them might even be shorter. But I'm going to try and address some of the main kind of features of the service. But before I sort of did that, I wanted to kind of remind everybody why we work. And that is, things like this. This is me on my holes. This is my younger daughter with a garlic on her head. This is me with my 2 daughters on a boat somewhere, I can't remember. And this is me with her hairy shoulders out on the Rio de Janeiro, northern Spain, doing a bit of canoeing and eating out of a Tupperware. And I mean, so many people at the moment who are working so incredibly hard. I just want to take the opportunity to remind everybody that as much as we talk tonight about with passion and intensity and real education philosophy about what we're trying to achieve with, hopefully not for young people, but with young people, what we should also remember is that we're dads and mums and all that sort of stuff, and we've got jobs to do at home as well. So I hope everyone's getting that balance right. If you're not, then a bit like I don't sometimes. If you're not, try and readdress something. So look, let's sort of see if we can make a start with this. My first job tonight is to address with you the idea of the student account. Now, for some of you, this is going to be reasonably familiar, I think, because quite a few of you have used the site previously, and you know roughly what the student experience is. But things have changed a bit this academic year, so I want to talk to you about these changes. And then broadly, we're going to go down this kind of blue to purple to pink color hue down here and address some of these points. I know a lot of you in the room here are looking at the teacher accounts and what the tracking facility is all about as well. But I also want to say to you, don't neglect this part here, the teacher support, the tutorials on the site that are there to upskill teachers. If this model of MyPEexam changes what happens in your classroom, then we need to answer the question, well, what does it change it to? What does it change it to? So on that basis, we're going to try and address that also. So all that being said, let me actually change my screen for you. I think you're probably just seeing me briefly there. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to now take you onto mypeexam.org. So hopefully what you're seeing here is you're seeing the mypeexam.org website, and you can see I'm logged in as Luke Skywalker. I was a bit of a fan in my youth. So kind of the first things I want you to realize is that Luke here is a student user. He's been registered for a course, and one of the key factors that he needs to follow is to understand this My Progress system. So if he clicks on that My Progress, it quite literally drags him down his personalized homepage, and it takes him down to the courses that he's enrolled for. So we can see here, Luke's enrolled for OCR A2 PE, exercise physiology. Okay, now, if we expand all here, or if Luke does that is, he can see the progress he's making in his lessons, and he can see the lessons he's completed. So for example, he has ticked off ATP and energy and the ATP PC system after a couple of attempts of not doing so well on those quizzes first time round. So that's kind of an interesting profile in itself, okay? So if we then click onto the course here, it's going to take us into that lesson course. And what we can see here is that those lessons that have been completed, and ATP and energy hasn't been completed simply because Luke hasn't ticked off the topics as completed, but we can see here that it's really time for Luke to move on to lactic acid system. And for many of you, as I said, this is going to be quite familiar for you. The lactic acid system is going to contain a little short introduction, and then we're going to be straight into a teaching video on that topic. Now, I'm not going to play those for you this evening. I'm pretty confident that the vast majority of you know about those services and understand what those videos are. So I'm not going to play those videos for you this evening. But what we have got down here is a quiz. So assuming that the student has made their notes, it could be in class, it could be for homework, the student every single time should be challenged then to use that language, use that new technical knowledge, use that new understanding and intuition in a stressed environment of a quiz. I'm going to say stressed. I mean stressed in the best way, provoked, challenged sort of sense. So we're going to get the student, or we're going to encourage the student to come down to this quiz. Now, for many of you, this will be new. To pass the quiz, the student has to get 6 consecutive correct answers to pass. So this quiz is going to fire 6 questions at us, and if we make a single error, we are not going to pass this quiz. And there's an unlimited number of repetitions the student can do with numerous question types behind the quiz that's going to throw up an alternative quiz each time. So here, match up descriptions with the main features of the LA system. So the controlling enzyme is PFK, the process of converting glycogen to glucose, glycolysis, enzyme that converts pyruvate into lactate, lactate dehydrogenase, LDH. Fuel source is glycogen, and the site is sarcoplasm. Now, of course, this is going to be challenging at the right moment for a student. So which harmful byproduct is the product of the lactic acid system? Well, that's nice and straightforward. It's lactic acid. And we continue. So it's going to throw 6 questions at us, and those 6 questions need to be perfectly answered. So the fuel source of the lactic acid system, we've kind of looked at this already. So a bit of repetition here for us. Glycogen, I've got to type it in, use a language. The site of reaction for the lactic acid system, we've already said, it's the sarcoplasm. I have to be careful with my spelling. The controlling enzyme for the lactic acid system, now please know you can put PFK. The byproduct of the lactic acid system is lactic acid, and the energy yield is 1 to 2. So hopefully we get those right and we move on. In which of the following locations is glycogen stored by the human body? And we know it's in the liver and the muscle. You thought I was going to put kidney there, didn't you? But no. Which of the following examples of sport performances will be predominantly fueled by the lactic acid system? Well, a goalkeeper diving full length, that's more PC system. Full court press in basketball, yes. 100-meter breaststroke race, yes. 400-meter swimming race, yes. Single lifting, weightlifting, no. 100-meter race, no. So we're good. And finally, we get to our last question. Which of the following could be considered advantages of the LA system? Well, advantages, no harmful byproducts, that's not one because there's lactic acid. No delay for oxygen, yes. Production of high intensity, yes. Efficient, no. Short duration, that's true about the system, but it's not an advantage. Shall we check? We are right. We finished the quiz, and now, assuming I click this button to click here, continue, we are now in a situation where if we go back to, it's going to take us on to the next lesson, but if we go back to exercise physiology OCR A2, our lesson, I hope at least, will be ticked off for us because we have, as you see there, the lactic acid system is ticked off. So a key part of this for me is the student is challenged to master topics, okay? Master them. They can't get 5 out of 6 questions correctly and get the tick. They can't make a little error in one of the questions, a spelling error, whatever it happens to be, and get the tick. It has to be perfect. Now, we might say, well, what about the sort of the lower performing students? Well, the point with this is it's flexible in time. You can repeat it. You can go back to the lesson. You can go back to the tutorial. This makes this a very versatile system for people. And as a result of that, we should be able to set a much higher standard for students to say, this is where we expect you to get to. All right, so look, hopefully that gives you a bit of an impression of what it's like to be a student, okay? The students progress through by taking tutorials, by taking quizzes. There's also assignment lessons in here, although I'm not going to talk about too much about assignments in here this evening. So look, now I'm just going to go back here. My screen's going to go a little bit crazy. And I'm just going to go back here and I'm going to go back to our black screen. So we've got a bit of an understanding there of what it's like to look at a student account. Now, of course, you can encourage your students to sign up for that as individuals. There's no reason why you shouldn't do that. If they do an AS or an A2 component, that's going to cost them £15 per course. If they do GCSE, that's going to cost them £25 per course. Now, you can encourage them to do that, but then, of course, when we come to the track in a moment, you're not going to be benefited by that process. All right. So I'm just going to come back into the webinar room, just see if there's any chat or questions that you guys want me to answer. If you do have a question, feel free to put it into the chat for me. I will try and answer those. I don't know if you've noticed as well, I've also put a poll into the suite this evening. So if you take a moment on the left-hand side, there's an active poll. If you would bear with me and just press one of those options, it's asked you about your current use of my services, then it would be useful for you to, it would be useful for me for you to do that. But all that being said, let's actually address this idea of the teacher account. Now, I know this is probably one of the main reasons why many of you are in this room tonight. Okay, we've got tens and tens of teachers in here, and I want to address what this teacher account is all about. All right, so I want to talk about the main features, the benefits of it, why perhaps people should consider taking this up as a possibility for them for 2015, 2016. So let's do that now. I'm going to go into back to my screen share. Excuse my unshaven state. I wasn't quite anticipating being on the screen tonight, I'm perfectly honest. But if we go back to the website now, I'm going to log out as Luke Skywalker, and I'm going to log in as a teacher account, in this case myself, James Sims. So again, as we do this, we're going to go back to our personalized homepage, and on this personalized homepage for a teacher, straight away, I hope you can realize that there's some additional features. There's a little black bar up here that gives you an option of the dashboard above this gray bar that's always on the site, no matter what type of user is using it. So again, the teacher can click on, exactly as we did with the student, the teacher can click on the My Progress bar, and they can see the courses that they are enrolled for. But of course, the courses are going to be different. In this case, this teacher, James Sims, is enrolled for using MyPEexam.org, is enrolled for group work, is enrolled for questioning technique and learning concepts, and they're also enrolled for the course they're delivering, which is exercise physiology, okay, because of course the teacher needs access to that. Now, there's not a lot of activity in here. He's done a little bit on questioning technique, but not much else. But I do want you to be aware that in this teacher support suite up here, there is a whole suite of teacher resources for you to benefit from if you have a teacher account on this site. So for example, if we just go into questioning techniques, there is an entire online course here for you to take that's going to run you through, I think if I remember rightly, 13 methodologies that will sharpen up your classroom practice and give you additional ideas of what can happen in the classroom. A lot of what I talk about with MyPEexam.org can change the classroom environment, and the question is, what does it change it to? Well, we could go into lesson 4 and we could learn this model of showdown. Now, this video here quite simply tells you how to set your classroom up, where to sit people, how to ask the question, what resources to provide. It is a quick, sharp tutorial, 7 minutes long. It hopefully will be brilliant CPD for you, which you can dip into any time that you want. Now then, we also want to think, let's go back to the homepage here, we also want to think about, well, okay, what is this tracking thing? What is this all about? I know there's a lot of you out there that are interested in this aspect of it. Well, here, and only teachers have access to this, we can go into a MyPEexam.org dashboard, and it's a very, very simple dashboard. We effectively have 3 options: overview, activity stream, and assignments. If I was to click on activity stream, we would see here the activity of our students that are enrolled in our groups that's been completed most recently. So we can see here, look, we just saw this quiz being taken. Luke Skywalker, lactic acid, passed the quiz, 6 out of 6. So that comes into the teacher's a workflow in real time. So imagine a scenario where you're in the classroom and you've set your students a tutorial, note-taking, and then to master a quiz. Not only can you watch what they're doing with your own eyes, but you can see the data coming in live to your account as it happens. Now, that is a very, very rich thing. Secondly, we have this button here which is called overview. It's a very simple very simple structure. I'll show you this manage groups in a moment, but if I select, and of course I've got many options as sort of an admin user on the site, but if I select the course that I'm interested in with my students, that being OCR A2P exercise physiology, I can get a quick snapshot of what those students are doing in terms of progress. I've only got 3 students in my group. I can see Princess Leia's making significant progress. Darth Vader, he's struggling and falling behind a bit, and Luke Skywalker's significantly behind, but all of them have started. Now imagine this if you've got 40, 50, if you've got a cohort of 150 GCSE students, for example, this, though simple, would provide you some good data. Now, I want you to focus on this button here, export user info. Now, if I click on this button, it's going to export the lesson progress of my students. So if I click on here, you see we're going to get a download, in this case, courses 11, but I've just prepared a folder over here with exactly, in fact, I'll tell you what we'll do. I'm going to actually put this courses 11 into here. I've prepared this folder here to show you what we can do with this information. So I'm going to open up the exercise physiology tracker. In fact, it is already open. Okay, so it is already open. So let me just pull that back up. So we've got this exercise physiology tracker in here. At the moment, it's completely unpopulated. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the Courses 11 download that I just had. I'm literally going to gather the information. It looks very raw in this format, but I'm going to Command C. I'll do it right click, copy that information. I'm now going to close this file, and I'm going to come back to my document here. And what I'm going to do is, that wasn't supposed to happen. What I'm going to do is I'm going to come onto Courses here. I'm just going to go to the top button, and I'm going to paste in that information. So now when we come back to this completed steps, all of a sudden we've got a really useful document that shows us, okay, here we've got, in this student here, we've got Princess Leia, Darth Vader, and Luke Skywalker. Again, imagine this with 30, 40, 50, 150 students. As we scroll across the screen, look, we can see, right, Princess Leia's made 5 lessons of mastered progress, Darth Vader 1, Luke Skywalker 2. And not only that, but we can see who's mastered each topic area. So I hope you can realize that, first of all, let's say ATP and energy. One of the first things we might do here is say, look, Princess Leia, we want you to do a bit of work with Darth Vader and Luke Skywalker to develop them on that topic they haven't mastered. Again, we've got the same thing here. Luke Skywalker and Princess Leia have mastered the topic of lactic acid system, but Darth is falling behind. He's struggling. We've got ammunition there to say, right, let's spend some time in whatever format you want with Darth Vader, upskilling that thing. Preferably, as your first sort of line of attack, another student can support and develop that student. So I think that's really, really rich. And I wanted to show you one other version of that. This is an Edexcel GCSE PE tracker. I'm actually going to close that down because that's not the one I thought I was going to open it. Do excuse me with that one. But what we can do is, if you can imagine this scenario with lots of data in it, then we've obviously got an awful lot of potency with how we monitor and track that information. So that's really good for us. In fact, that's fantastic for us. So the other thing I'd like you to do, if we go back to the website now, we go back into our tracking area. We had this button here, which is called Manage Groups. By the way, that's also available here under Group Administration. So let's go and Manage Groups for a moment. When we go to Manage Groups, we might have, I've only got one group here. It's called Example Group. You might have 3 or 4 groups assigned to you. It might be Edexcel GCSE PE full course. It might be OCR, AS, Anatomy and Physiology, OCR, A2, Exercise Physiology, whatever it happens to be. First of all, we can go and have a look at our users. And there's a tool in here where we can email all of our users. So we can put in homework, and then we can put in some blurb about what the homework is, and we can send that off to all students. What else we can do is we can look at the individual students, and we can go into individual reports, and I'll show you more potency about this as well in a moment. So with Luke Skywalker, for example, we can simply go in, see which courses he's enrolled for, and we can just see all the quiz activity, including, of course, this quiz that went on last time. So imagine a scenario where you're sat down next to the student discussing this kind of data and this kind of information. Let's go back. Of course, we could go and look in for another student's work here if we wanted to. But what I do want to show you is I want to show you at this point, just going back here, this notion of exporting results. Okay, if we export these results, what we get is we get a download of quiz scores. And again, if I open my little folder here, I'm just going to put quizzes 5 into here. Let's open quizzes 5. This document is just going to show us all of the quizzes that these students have done. All we're going to do is copy it. Let me do it right click. We're going to copy. We're going to close that down. And what we're going to do is we're going to go into quizzes here, and quite simply, we're just going to paste that data in. So now when we go down to quiz activity, now we've got a huge amount of data about what these students are doing. So very simply, I might just filter, get rid of these, and I'm worried about Darth Vader. Let's see what Darth Vader's been doing. So we've now got all the data about Darth Vader. We might want to put all students in. We might have set a homework, for example. We might have set a homework on the ATP energy system. So if we set that homework, we can go to quiz title, and we've got ATP and energy, or it might be that we're looking at the ATP PC system homework, and we can see which of our students have not only taken the quiz, but which have repeated it. So we could look at Luke Skywalker here, for example, and say, look, Luke had 3 goes at it, 50%, 83%, 100%. It shows a lot of detail about the learning behaviors of that student, and I think most of us would be pleased with that. And we can do the same here. Of course, we can also do it by date. We can also we can also put in order those that have mastered and those that haven't, so we can see that sort of data. So this sort of download and tracking becomes really, really rich. All right, I'm going to go back into the webinar room just for a moment. Your screen will go a little bit crazy, I think. And I'm going to go back to here. So what I hope you can see there is that we've got some real potency in the group tracking and in the download section of this. So we've looked at the teacher accounts, we've looked at the group tracking and the downloads. Now then, when you think about group structures, please remember that you can have hierarchy in your group structures. So that could be that one teacher, the teacher could simply be managing one group, whereas the manager, let's say, it's a Gcse, a Key Stage 4 GCP manager, for example, they could be managing all groups. So, of course, you can put hierarchy into which data you receive, and therefore the manager can have the global overall picture of how these students are actually engaging with this content. It's not something you have to just throw at them and hope they do. You can know how they're doing. You can set a homework and know before they arrive back in the classroom, not only if they've done it, but when they did it and how well they did it and what score they got. You can even look at their learning behaviors of, did they repeat it? Did they persevere? Did they give up? Did they maybe get 30% one time and not go back to it? Did they do it the night before the lesson was due, or even the morning of the lesson, and as a result of that really struggle with that concept? And if that is the case, of course, we can start addressing those things with students. All right, I want to start thinking about this notion of mastery. Okay, now the tracker I just showed you, the document I just showed you a moment ago, this one is what I refer to as the mastery tracker, and particularly, let me just make sure you're seeing that a second, bear with me a second. So this document, you've got to remember that while it's a very, very simple process, a very, very simple structure, what we're saying is in here that when a student has ticked off, at some point there, they have mastered that content. And therefore, this becomes very, very rich for you, okay? We can see where students have got to go, where their gaps are. We can direct them to what is the most relevant content to them. We can encourage students to support one another. Always, 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 always having mastery as the target, not get your target grade, not we aiming to get you a C, no, a mastery standard of understanding. Now, I'm quite vociferous about this point, and I think it's really important that we are vociferous about this point. We should not be labeling students, I'll rephrase that. We should not be limiting students by their target grades. Those target grades are a direct result of the educational structure we put around those students. It is not a result of what is between the students' ears. It is a direct result of the educational structures, including those at home, that are around that student. So if we offer a fixed structure, everyone goes to the same pace, but we've got these students all starting at different paces, then of course we're going to get variable outcomes. So let's change what the students are doing as individuals, and this service can enable that, at least to an extent. So I really like this mastery tracker because it allows you just very simply look down the column, look down the topics they've got to cover. And it's only one part of the deal, right? Using MyPEexam.org isn't an entire A-level or an entire GCSE. They've got to do all the classroom stuff. They've got to do the past papers. They've got to do the group work. They've got to answer the questions that their teacher sets. But it's a very, very strong string to the bow. It will strengthen the quality of the offer. So, this is done for you, this stuff. This is done for you. And again, in this quiz activity, I've filtered out a lot of information here. But of course, bear with me a second while I try not to be too heavy-handed. Of course, you've got a great deal of potency about where you start to actually analyze this data. I really like looking at a student level. Okay, I really like looking at it at a student level. So let's say we have a look at Luke Skywalker, for example. We can see all of Luke Skywalker's efforts, and we can see, you can also do them in here as well. You can do them by kind of alphabetical in there as well, so you can actually see what's been happening in this profile. So the top one, look, ATP and energy, we can actually see that Luke Skywalker's actually passed that on a fourth attempt. Okay, so they've actually done that on a fourth attempt. So, you know, whether that's a positive thing or a negative thing, you've got to kind of judge for yourselves. But it's certainly information. You see, right? They eventually got there. What was going on in the process that kind of held them back in the first instance? We want to see this growth of improving results, but maybe for quizzes might suggest, well, okay, they really struggled on this one. We might need to do some reinforcement work on that particular topic. So that mastery for me is absolutely crucial and a key asset in using this service. All right, I'm going to go back to my black screen for a moment. Just bear with me. So let's go back here. The teacher support, I just want to describe a little bit for you. Okay, the teacher support. I'm going to drag you down on the screen. The teacher support is 85 tutorials. Okay, teacher support is 85 tutorials, 85 video tutorials, HD tutorials for teachers. Now, I tend to argue that these 85 tutorials will, as self-paced teacher development, will actually be the equivalent of about 5 years worth of CPD for a secondary school teacher. And you can access that on the site, and a lot of them are just pick up and go methods. You know, new technique, use it tomorrow. And their group work, questioning techniques, learning concepts, these sorts of ideas. You know, whether you invest in MyPEexam.org this year or not, we've got to make that sort of facility available to teachers. We have got to get that sort of development available 24/7 to teach. And I'm trying to do my bit with it. And this seminar, this webinar is an example of that. But we've got to get these sort of tools out to teachers en masse, open source, self-paced, CPD, when you and I need it at any time. All right, let's I'm just going to go back into the webinar room here. One of the things I want you to be aware of is that by being an attendee in the webinar this evening, there is a voucher available to you. Okay, so I'm going to just offer you that voucher in a moment. Just bear with me a second. Just going to turn the microphone off 1 second. Okay, and I'm back, and that's great. What I thought I prepared as a voucher has happened not to work out for me. So look, the way this is going to work for you guys is that I'm actually going to be offering any colleague who has attended the webinar this evening a £25 discount off any of the group or department packages that you might be interested in signing up for 2015, 2016. And I did have a really flashy little voucher to show you, but when you inquire, perhaps at the end of this webinar, about the groups, the teacher tracking, about the student accounts, you're going to get £25 off as a standard discount. Now, do bear in mind that in September there's also 15% off all group and department accounts. So you get those offers in combination during the course of September. Okay, so if you've already signed up and paid that £25 off, you can use that voucher at any time. So all I need you to do is, when you inquire, I was going to give you that voucher code, when you inquire through the website, all you simply need to do is mention that you've been in the webinar this evening and please request that £25 off, and I will automatically credit that for you. So I'm sorry I got that wrong. I genuinely thought I had that ready for you. Oh dear. All right, some things go wrong, hey, occasionally. That's part of teaching, I suppose, part of education. Okay, for me, best practice needs to be addressed. One of the things that I've become sort of very familiar with in recent years in the work that I've been doing, and I've mentioned this briefly already today, is that the dominant model in education is what we can broadly call the fixed seat time model. The fixed seat time model. And what we mean by that is that you can probably literally count up the number of hours your students, and my students for that matter as well, all of our students get exposed to teaching, get exposed to homework, get exposed to questions, get exposed to past paper questions, get exposed to mock exams. And the point is that if all of our students, if this is the finishing line over here, if this is the ticker tape over here, so this is the finish over here, if all of our students start at different points, we've got one that's starting there, and we've got another one that's starting here, and we've got another one that's starting here, and we've got one student who's really struggling starting way back here. If we do the same processes to these students, we are going to get, effectively, we are going to get a variable achievement rate out of these students. And our little orange bar down here, of course, they're going to really struggle. And that's what we mean by the fixed seat time model. And amongst other things, that fixed seat time model has one inevitable outcome. There are other outcomes as well, but one of them is inevitable every single time across a system-wide basis, I mean. And that outcome is what we would call the variable achievement rate. So that is to say that if we largely do the same process, the same pace, the same rhythm, yes, of course, there's different work ethic in different people. I totally accept that. But if we do, broadly speaking, the same process to people over the period of a set period of time, then we're going to get a very different level of achievement from each of those. And what I'm saying is that MyPEexam can be part, and I'm not saying it's the overall answer, but part of an initiative whereby we can change the seat time. We can actually make the seat time variable for people. Now, I'm not arguing that everyone's going to get an A if they use mypeexam.org, but what I will argue with you, or what I will present to you, is that everybody can master lesson 1, and everybody can master lesson 2, and everybody can master lesson 3. So while we might not be talking about an A or an A star as the finishing line here, let's just look at it on a lesson. Why don't we just aim for mastery and vary the seat time? So get rid of this fixed seat time, and let's put a variable seat time in for individual students. And of course, it's very difficult to do that in a traditional classroom, but with a tool a little bit like MyPEexam. I hope there will be others in the future, maybe even better ones. But with this sort of model, then perhaps we can start varying this seat time and actually addressing perhaps an individual rhythm to learning. Okay, so for me, best practice is really fixing one's mind on this concept of mastery. Mastery, yeah, it could be about A's, it could be about A stars, but let's just focus on smaller things. Let's focus on the process. Why don't we do mastery of a topic? Why don't we focus on mastery of some concepts within an individual lesson activity? And if a student is not a mastered student by the end of that lesson, why would we encourage that student to move on? And of course, in this model, you don't necessarily have to. So for me, that's best practice. And okay, it's quite sort of theoretical and philosophical, but it's something that I think we should think about. All right, next steps. What I'm going to do here is I'm just going to take you into the pricing on the website, which, you know, I know people don't always feel that having to pay for things is always the right way of doing it, and I actually agree with that. Okay, actually, personally, I feel a little bit uncomfortable with charging. I always wanted this service to be a free service, but our world isn't structured that way, and you know, I had a choice this year of either ending the service really or charging, and you know, it seemed like the best possibility to do it this way. So I hope people can be supportive of that. I'm certainly not doing this with anything other than kind of good intentions. Let's have a little look at the pricing and the options that you've got. All schools can encourage their students to sign up as individuals, okay? So that is to say that students can sign up for Gcse courses direct on the site, and that will cost them £25 for an individual subscription for 12 months on the website, so they can get the AQA course, the Edexcel course. I'm building the OCR course at the moment. The AS and A2P by component, they are £15, and the students can do that direct on the site. Harley Davidson just went past my window. I'm sorry if that roared there. So what we find here is, of course, that this is beneficial for the students, but it's not necessarily something that you're going to really benefit from as a school. The student might individually, but really, you know, you're not necessarily going to get that tracking, the teacher support, and also it's not cost effective. So that's why we've got these group packages. So basically, the more students you have, the price comes down. So for GCSE, it comes down to 20. For basically a class of learners, and what is effectively more than one class goes down to £15. And per component at ASNA2, again, the prices slip down to £10 when you've got more than 12 learners. Okay, so depending on how many students you've got, you can also add on the teacher tracking. That is free if you spend over 350, and the teacher support, again, which is free, or over 350 or £50 if you're under that. And finally, and this actually is what the vast majority of people signing up to the website are going for, and it's called a department account. The idea of this is that you can literally do anything. So you can have any group structure you want. You can have any hierarchy in your group structure. I've got some people using the services who have teachers managing groups, managers managing cohorts, and they have SLT link members who are managing the data that comes through. Now, I'm not necessarily recommending that to you, but I'm just suggesting to you that it's possible. You can have all of your Gcse AS and A2 students signed up. The groups, as I said, are unlimited. You can have all your teachers on. It doesn't necessarily need to be teachers that, if you've got teachers who are only doing core PE and you just want them to do the teacher support stuff, they can have that as well. Any number of teachers in that PE department. I would probably struggle to go to the whole school of teachers, but you know, if you want to talk to me about it, I'm sure we could come to some kind of arrangement. And finally, all the teacher tracking's there, and as I mentioned already, the teacher support. Now that's a big number, and I do acknowledge that's $650. There's 15% off until September, the end of this month, I should say. And you know, if you're interested in that, and many schools, you know, tens of schools are signing up for this at the moment. If you're interested in that, you know, you've got that 15% off, and you've also now got that, albeit without a voucher code, which is a bit embarrassing, but you've also got that £25 off with the attendance at this evening's webinar as well. So that will bring it down to sort of low 500s for you, and it's certainly worth considering for that. All right, I'm just going to go back onto the screen. I wasn't expecting to be on the screen today, so just let me turn this off. Just bear with me a second. So I'm going to go back into the screen here, and as you see, I really wasn't, you know, expecting this. I'm in the auspicious environment here. I'll show you how wonderful my office here, where I am. It's the quietest place, and it's the quietest place in my house. But this is actually just my daughter's bedroom in here. I booted her out, and she's got to put up with me in here. It's the quietest place, albeit with that Harley Davidson screaming past. But look, this is something that I really believe in. As much as I'm going through sort of a business process to try and make this work, really what I consider myself to be is an activist in education. I'm trying to make change in education, not trying necessarily to make money. The money is just a feature to enable this project and this process. To be honest as well, I'm actually looking for like-minded colleagues to get involved in this as well. It's not just a matter of trying to get as many people as possible, but trying to sort of help people to understand what it's about and why we might sort of go down this kind of direction. I hope that's not too sort of pushy to sort of say that, but you know, I'm really looking for people who understand the concept to sort of get involved with this and sort of say, look, I kind of buy into it. I think maybe there's something there. Maybe we can drive it forward together. I've no doubt there's people in this room tonight who've got better ideas than me. And that collaboration really excites me. It excites me that tonight we have got tens and tens, almost 100 PE teachers in this room together talking about PE, thinking about improving results, thinking about improving outcomes. That excites me massively, and it's something that I'm going to be pushing out a lot more in the future as well. I've got lined up things like we're going to do some work on flipped learning, some webinars later. We're going to do some stuff on blended learning later, probably getting into October. I'm going to be publishing those, and also planning to publish some conversations about, you know, for example, I'm Sporticus has done some really great work about assessment without levels, and we're looking at maybe broadcasting something about that. And there's going to be continuous updates. If you are a signed up user of the site as well, one of the things I'd like to do is not just use getting started with MyPEexam.org webinar, but also best practice tracking intervention with MyPEexam.org, an ongoing developmental process. All right. So, Kate, I'm going to ask you a question on the chat. Where did that tracker sheet come from? That tracker sheet I'm actually going to be publishing live tomorrow. I literally just finished making it. I've been working on it about sort of 6 weeks to get it right. Something that's been in the pipeline for a little while. I actually finished it off yesterday, and there is a version of that tracker sheet for every course on the website. All right. So whether you're doing Edexcel, Gcse, OCRA2, there's a tracker for that, and I'm going to be publishing those through the website, and you're going to be able to download those and use those. They're very, very, very simple to use, and that's the key thing. You know, there's no complications. In fact, the only challenging thing about those sheets is you must enable the macros when you open it. Other than that, it's straightforward. I will do some guidance videos on those as well. Ben, question about Google Classroom. There's no reason why you can't combine this with Google Classroom. So for example, there are some things you can do and some things you can't do. So for example, there's nothing to stop you in Google Classroom either putting a QR code or a link into the specific lesson that you want the student to come onto in the website. However, the student still needs to be logged in and registered on the website. What isn't possible is to, for example, embed YouTube videos into the Google Classroom. That facility is only, the videos are only available on the website. I hope people understand that. It would be very difficult for me, albeit that YouTube's been a great platform for me, it would be very difficult for me to have a service on MyPEexam.org and then give a majority of that away for free. One of the big things I've got in the pipeline that's probably about 8 months away ish is the plan to publish an app which will contain all of the videos in course order, and people will be able to get that through the App Store and also through obviously the Google Apps products as well. So that's in the pipeline as well as one of the other two things. But of course, a big part of this year is also developing the 2016 content. And rest assured, MyPEexam.org will be there for 2016. You know, I actually hope to be the first to publish my material, which is something I really want to try and achieve. But it's not a. It's obviously I've got to make sure that those drafts are ratified before I go too far into that process. I've already been planning a lot of that. So for your question, would you consider developing a program for BTEC? Well, look, I've actually had some conversations with some people at Pearson, and it is a possibility. I won't do it in collaboration with a big company though, so it's something that I'm either going to be doing myself when time allows, or I'm going to be doing with collaboration from people in the PE sector. This has to stay as us. If this becomes, and I don't mean to name Pearson as that, because they're good people, aren't they? They're fine. But if we get big publishers, if we get companies involved with this, it will go down the money-making sole route, and it mustn't be about this. That there is money involved in this, but this has got to be about an educational philosophy that is driven very clearly, and I have that very, very clear in my mind. So that's just going to have to go bit by bit by bit, really. Okay, I don't know if I've answered, sort of answered your question there, I think, about updated videos. Some of the videos will remain the same. So, if the content is literally identical, like what would be a good example? Something like the lactic acid system might be a good example of that, actually. I may not record that again. I may use that same video, but of course it's going to go into different structures. Where they've brought in, for example, on the OCR AS course, cardiovascular driven the trained heart, I've got to make a decision about whether the video I've done for the old AQA course is relevant for the new OCR course, or we record something new. So, but rest assured, it will all be updated, and hopefully it's going to be good stuff. So, what I would encourage everyone in the everyone who's been in the webinar maybe to think about as a follow-on for this. Obviously, I'm dead keen from a business perspective, from a what's the word I'm looking for being able to continue the movement sort of perspective. Sustainability was the word I was looking for. I really want people to get involved with this, of course, this year. But more than that, we need to think about what I've said. Not that I think I'm right or that I know more. It's not about that. It's about that we're all grinding so hard in those classrooms. And I think a lot of it is energy that we can bring together and really join and actually make something out of. And I want to have that conversation with people. Now, I've got my ideas, other people have other ideas as well. The last thing I wanted to say is that this movement will never, ever, ever stand still. And what I mean by that is that that teacher support stuff, it starts as 85 tutorials today. By Christmas, it'll be 100. By summer, it'll be 130. Those quiz questions, there's 10, 15 quiz questions behind each topic at the moment. By Christmas, there'll be 30. You get the idea. It's going to grow and grow and grow and grow and grow. This is not something, if you invest in this, it will not be something that is the same in 12 months' time as it is now. There'll be constant updates, better trackers, better facilities. And as that develops, obviously, the community hopefully will develop from that as well. All right, I'm going to sort of hang about for any questions. If you want to post a question in the chat, then really do feel free to do that. I'm more than happy to answer that. Oddly, I sort of enjoyed doing this, to be perfectly honest. Yeah, I'm gonna hang around. What I will do as well is that I'll be on Twitter as well straight after this if you're looking to do that. And basically, as I stop the broadcast in a minute or two's time, you'll be redirected into MyPEexam.org, and I really encourage you to make an inquiry on the site if you haven't already done so. I'm really sorry about that voucher thing, by the way. I need to look into that. You know, things go wrong sometimes, right? So yeah, it's a bit embarrassing. What can you do about it? I tried and it didn't work. But anyway, I will honour totally that deal. Just make sure that you tell me you've been in the webinar, and I'll absolutely honour that, and I look forward to doing that. Oh, Ben, that's a lovely comment. Thanks, man. Yeah, every single one of you talk to me at any point. You can contact me through the website. Yeah, and everything's possible. Kevin, can we get access to only the teacher support? Yes, you can. I don't put this in the pricing, but basically the way I do that is that if people want subscription just to teacher support, even though it's £50 on top of group accounts, I sell it for £100 as a standalone product for the year. So if you want to do that, you can do that. Simon, that's an absolutely tremendous message. Thanks, man. And by the way, so I really enjoyed chatting to you as well. When was that last night? It's I can't remember when that happened. We had a really good chat. Yeah, thanks. That's a really nice message, and we're going to do more of this. This is the start. Make that absolutely clear. This is the start. We're doing a lot more of this sort of thing. We're going to do a heck of a lot more. Yeah, Julia. Yeah, passion is the easy bit. Sometimes pressing the right buttons is the hard bit. But yeah, you're welcome. The passion, it isn't pretend. Like, I am a combination of passionate, angry. I want change. And I want to really cause a stir, to be perfectly honest with you. So I'm trying to do that in a really functional sense. That's what my intention is, and I'm trying to produce something which achieves that. And also, what I'd like to do is, I want to do more teaching myself. At the moment, I work in front of a computer, which is a little bit tricky, but I'd like to get back into some teaching. If anyone's got a job out there, talk to me. Yeah, Sophie, brilliant. Prospects of BTEC. Look, Sophie, if you've got ideas about that, you come to me and talk to me about it. I've got a number of ideas about it. It's a massive project, it's a massive initiative, as you know. And if you've got some really good ideas, you come and talk to me about it, because I agree with you, working smart and not harder is the way to do it. This isn't about me being whatever amount of lessons on YouTube or whatever it happens to be. This is about, we're all doing the same process over and over again, all repeating the same mechanistic processes. If we can actually unite and do them together and find a brilliant way, not necessarily my way, but our way, then that can be a really effective thing. Yeah. Oh, thanks, Lindsay. That's a beautiful message. Thank you. Yeah. By the way, that's a good point. I should have said that, Lindsay, previously. I'm actually going to upload this recording to Vimeo because it hosts better there. I'm going to send the link out to all the people who have been there tonight as well. So yeah, Dave, thanks for that. Not at all, my pleasure. And actually, Dave, it's good to see you on Twitter as well a lot of the time. And yeah, Kevin, I hope that answers your question. The webinar is recorded, and it will be sent around to you effectively as a Vimeo link. It goes onto my YouTube channel. I'm going to download it, put it on Vimeo, because it works better on Vimeo. It's a much better platform. So I'll put it on there and I'll post it around to you. All right, Simon. Yeah, Simon, how you doing? That's Skegness over there. It's a good place. Old holiday haunt of my childhood. Tracker looks great. We've been talking about what we can do with the data. This solves the questions. Yeah, I'm putting that out tomorrow, Simon. So if I wake up early enough, you'll get that sometime tomorrow morning. And yeah, I mean, you may get like a big zip folder. I haven't decided how I'm going to do that. I may well just send a zip folder with all the tracker versions in there, and obviously just select the ones that are relevant to you. That's probably the most way to do it. My pleasure, Simseed over in Chelmsford. My pleasure, mate, and great to have you in here. Really, one of our big guns over there, Steve. Really appreciate having you in here tonight as well. Sally, your resource has been a godsend and helped us to get the best results ever. Oh, Sally, my God, you're going to make me well up if you say things like that. I can't wait to get going with the department package. Thank you so much. Oh, that is, I don't know, that's lovely. For a guy who spends all his life looking at a computer, I sort of lack human interaction. So thank you. That's really nice. Cheers, Kev. Yeah, brilliant. Lindsay, also, how quick will the access be once we pay? I'll actually give you access before you pay. So as soon as you submit the registration documents, which is what I send you if you inquire, it's 2 working days. I've been absolutely inundated with orders, which is great, obviously, brilliant, but it's just slowed me down a little bit. So I was working at 3 to 4 days this week, but I've actually had to take I've had the opportunity to take someone on to help me out with a bit of the admin, so I hope that's going to speed me up a little bit. So hopefully 2 to 3 days is the question to that, Lindsay. Certainly nothing like a week or anything like that. I would say probably maximum 3 days, thereabouts. If you've got huge numbers, like if you've got like 20 odd groups, if you've got 8 Gcse groups and loads of it, it might take that a bit longer, but yeah, it's not too long. Matt Keeling, James, great to see this tonight. Clear passion is something we're certainly going to be using as department. Fantastic. I contacted the other day about the website, timed it well. Yeah, good. I mean, yeah, absolutely. Look, I mean, I want people involved. I want people, as I said before, it's not that we're not going to accept anyone, but what I mean by we want people who come to sessions like this and get the concept, right? That's why I'm doing these sort of sessions as well. It's not just about flogging some stuff. I want this to be a movement. I hope that comes across. Chris, really good instruction. Thanks for all the hard work. Not at all. I love it, honestly, Chris. I did all that live stuff last year. I couldn't have been happier. it was like they were my best days ever. So no, I loved it. So no, it's absolutely my pleasure. And yeah, you absolutely let's get everything signed up, and we'll be ready to go. All right, I'm going to stop the broadcast, guys. I am going to stay available on Twitter for the rest of the evening until probably next hour or so, something like that. As I stop the broadcast, you'll be redirected onto the website, and it gives you the opportunity to inquire there. Don't forget to mention you're in tonight's webinar and claim that £25 voucher. If you've already signed up, that £25 voucher can be applied to anything in the future that you purchase from the services. Guys, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Great start for me, and I mean, what I mean by that is great learning experience for me to actually do this and be able to put this sort of platform together. Cheers, you guys. Have a brilliant evening. I'm going to have a cup of tea. Cheers.